First topic I want to talk about. Didn't think I'd be talking about that this week, but let's get to it. Sir Alex Ferguson's comments on Cristiano Ronaldo being benched, dropped, rested. I think rested is the correct term for Manchester United against Everton. Firstly, let's read the comments because it comes from Sir Alex Ferguson having, let's just say, a quiet discussion with UFC superstar Khabib. He was at Old Trafford.
As expected, yeah.
This story gets, very bizarre, but Khabib's social media team, I assume he has a team, or maybe he posted it himself, posted a video of him interacting with Sir Alex Ferguson in one of the lounge areas at Old Trafford. And then Sir Alex said when Everton saw that Ronaldo wasn't playing, it gave them a boost. And then Khabib's response was, well, he did come on in the second half. And Fergie's, response to that was, yeah, I know, but you should always start with your best players, and was raising his eyebrows and not looking too happy. Guys, there's a lot to unpack there. But Nick, what do we think about these comments? Is it being blown out of proportion? How much do we read into this? Because it's Ronaldo, it's Manchester United, it's Sir Alex, big names, but you can kind of read between the lines here, right? About Solskjaer and the managerial situation at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm just waiting for the interview at Barcelona with Pep Guardiola speaking in the lounge to Sharon Stone or something, because that's how random the celebrity connection was here. I'll tell you what, I think it's going to go one of two ways. And what's kind of funny to me is these are fans who didn't want to stick with David Moyes, even though they respected Sir Alex's opinion. So if they're going to pile on Ole, then what's the story there? It's such a weird club for a giant club. And perhaps at times, no doubt, the biggest and most important one in the world, that I don't know how to unpack these things. I feel like I need an insider. I've got a buddy who used to work in the media over there, and we met well before I was involved in soccer media. And I would always ask him about Manchester United, when they were wearing the green and gold, and I was learning what that meant, what the fans were wearing. And I remember asking him, about United. He told me it's just different than any other club. The expectations are higher, the limits are shorter. And I believe this conversation, oddly enough, the first one we had was about why Tim Howard didn't work out there. And so it's such a unique situation because Ole is also one of their own, right? And I just don't, I feel like I'm the wrong person to ask, because Joe, give us some feedback from over there. Like, what do the English view about this?
Well, I think that mostly everyone would kind of agree with what Sir Alex was saying. I'm of the opinion that even though if Ronaldo, at the age of 36, he does need a rest, of course, but why would you rest him when he's been your most clinical player, your most important player so far this season? Why not start him, take him off after 60 minutes once the damage is done, or maybe you're a goal up against Everton? And the same with Paul Pogba. He was rested for this game as well. I get it. I get that players need a rest. That's fine. But certain players for Manchester United right now are undroppable, if you want to call it that. With Pogba and Ronaldo, they are their two best players. I think even Bruno Fernandes has regressed slightly this season. So, yeah, I think I just don't really get it. And I kind of agree with Fergie. I think he's speaking the truth. Now, Sky Sports, our partners in the UK, have asked Manchester United for some comments. They said they will not be commenting on this story or this comment from Sir Alex. I mean, Andy, what do you think about this? Because Solskjaer, it's been rough for him to start the season. This is kind of the last thing he needed rumbling on over the international break, right?
Yes, certainly during the international break. This was a chance for him to kind of go back into the darkness for a week or two and let people forget about him and stop speaking his name and calling for his job and these things. And now he's just going to be in the forefront for the entire 2 weeks in between when they play Premier League matches. So it's a little bit unfortunate for him. I kind of think this whole thing is nothing really, because these are conversations that happen among club dignitaries or people that work for the club or very important, powerful figures from the past that are still involved with clubs all the time. The only reason it's a story is because obviously it got out. Now, why did it get out? Was there something lost in translation between Khabib and his people and what he thought was being conveyed, and not really understanding or giving consideration to how it would come across to the public with the issues that it might cause? I would lean towards that direction. somebody slightly more sinister or cynical might say that, well, maybe it was released on purpose because somebody has an agenda and they want to up the pressure on Solskjaer and try to get him out of there. So it could be a lot of different things. I think the big point that you touched on there, Joe, was Bruno Fernandes. And we talked about this when this deal was about to happen or it had just happened. And I kind of felt that I didn't think it was going to crater Manchester United this season. It was going to blow up everything that they had done, but I felt like it was stepping away from what they had been building and the way that they had been playing and the squad that they had put together, just because the opportunity to sign this very famous and beloved player within the history of their club came up, and so they did it, of course. But it does feel like Bruno, I don't know, is he looking over his shoulder now? Not just the penalty thing, but he is no longer kind of the focal point. For a year and a half, Bruno showed up at Old Trafford. It was his team immediately. It took no time whatsoever. That's not the case anymore. And given the age that he's at and the age that Ronaldo's at, I think you would want to prioritize Bruno just a little bit more to make him feel comfortable to keep him there for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, once I heard these comments, it took me back to the game of the weekend where Man United didn't play well, drew at home against Everton. Ronaldo came on late in the game, didn't get a lot of service, wasn't really involved at all. And then the end of the game at the final whistle, he was straight off the pitch very abruptly. He didn't look happy during the game. There was a lot of hands on hips and gesturing. And, you know, it like you said, Andy, it's a risk to bring him back, I think, to upset the balance of the team. Of course, he's scoring goals, 5 in his first 6 appearances back in all competitions for Manchester United. But that level of scrutiny, I think, and the pressure just, it rises up extra levels now on Solskjaer this season. And this kind of incident just proves how big of a name he is and how many problems, if things aren't going well on the pitch, that it can cause. Because let's be honest, if United is playing well and winning games, things like this, will just get brushed to one side. But the fact that they aren't playing well and they've only won 2 of their last 6 in all competitions, that's the issue, right? So, Nick, is this going to change at all? Or Solskjaer, is this kind of thing just going to keep popping up unless they are, like we said, winning week in, week out?
Well, yes, but mostly because they've been not great. You could argue that they were better against Everton than they were against Villarreal, where they snuck out that result. I Googled, guys. I went on the Google box, the internet machine, when you guys were speaking, and I searched Khabib, Cristiano Ronaldo, and there is a picture of them holding up a Khabib number 7 Real Madrid jersey. So maybe I'm kidding.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. We're at step 2 now. We need one more factor of the story, and we've got a full-blown conspiracy theory here.
Yeah, but I just think ultimately Ole is, again, we mentioned last week, we spoke about it for 10 minutes, Joe, you and I. I don't think he's the guy for that club. I don't even think he's a bad manager. I think maybe he works somewhere else. But for that club, you need somebody who's going to command that respect. And right now, you start to realize even further that Ole's respect comes from on high. It comes from tradition. It comes from the people above him, including Sir Alex. So is that a more significant dent than we want to say? Not right now, but over time, you may point back to this as a sign of something. Because Sir Alex, remember, loves CR7. After, was it the Nations League or the Euro, whatever game it was, he's waiting there for Ronaldo to come walking down the stairs to give him a hug. These two are very close. So you can look at that one of 2 ways as well.
Yeah, they're very close. And obviously Solskjaer and Ferguson are very close as well. So, it's an interesting dynamic there at Manchester United. And Fergie has never been afraid of speaking his mind, especially when it comes to football. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'd love to be at Sir Alex Ferguson's house maybe this weekend if he has Solskjaer over for a roast dinner. It's going to be some interesting thoughts there. So the answers on a postcard for what they'll be discussing. But, yeah. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for the latest on that situation. And we'll keep you covered with all the Premier League news over the international break. Just because there aren't any games doesn't mean that there aren't any stories. There's always stuff popping up across the Premier League. And we'll have you covered at PST.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.